After the death of Feodor I in 1598, Russia was left without an heir, and so began chaos. Boris Godunov took the throne, a ruler with no royal blood, intelligent, capable, but rumors whispered, did he kill the rightful heir? Facing famine, rebellion, and suspicion, Boris fell after just 7 years. Then, like a ghost from the grave, came false Dmitry Ironman, claiming to be Ivan the Terrible's son. The people welcomed him with hope, the boyars with distrust. Ambush, betrayal, and within a year, he was dead, thrown from a window. Vasily Shuisky, one of the plotters, proclaimed himself Tsar, but the people despised him. His army was weak, his reputation weaker. He ruled for 4 years, years of loss, betrayal, and foreign invasions. In the end, he was deposed and tonsured as a monk. Russia spiraled into darkness. Lithuanians in Moscow, Cossacks roamed freely, fortresses fell, a nation with no Tsar, no hope, no tomorrow. 3 years without a ruler. But in the deepest gloom, the people rose. Peasants, priests, merchants, united in a national militia. After 15 years of chaos, famine, foreign occupation, and struggles for the throne, Russia elected a new Tsar in 1613. 16-year-old Michael Romanov. He came from a noble boyar family. His father, Patriarch Filaret, held significant religious and political influence. The Romanovs were connected to the Ruriks through the maternal line, giving Michael some legitimacy. His rise marked the end of the time of troubles and the beginning of the 3-century-long Romanov dynasty. Michael I ruled for 32 years. He began rebuilding from ashes. The land was devastated, villages abandoned, the people impoverished. His reign brought peace, order, and centralization. Church and state aligned. Peasants returned to the fields. Borders were restored. With the help of his father Filaret, Michael laid a stable foundation for future generations of Romanovs. His quiet strength lifted the state. Russia could breathe again. Alexis I, 31 years, strengthened the foundations of modern Russia. He introduced a legal code that increased absolutism and expanded the bureaucracy. He reformed the army and made the state more organized. In war against Poland, he conquered eastern Ukraine and Kyiv, bringing Russia closer to the Black Sea. Internally, unrest grew, Cossacks rebelled, and the Streltsy caused havoc in the capital. The deepest rupture came from the church. Patriarch Nikon's reforms triggered a schism, creating religious divisions lasting centuries. Alexis's era was one of expansion but also of turmoil. The state grew outward, but simmered within. His rule paved the way for the next age of great reformers. Feodor III, 6 years, was dreamy and frail, yet abolished torture and restructured the court. A brief cultural bloom began, while advisors shaped the question of succession. Ivan V, 14 years, co-ruled with his brother Peter under the watchful eye of their mother, Natalia. Too passive for reform himself, Ivan's quiet reign was overshadowed by Peter's ambition. Peter the Great, 43 years, transformed Russia from the ground up. Initially sharing the throne with Ivan, he eventually ruled alone. He traveled through Europe, learning trades and military skills, then returned to modernize his homeland. He built factories, reformed the military, introduced Western customs from clothing to taxes. He built a navy, reached the Baltic, and moved the capital to St. Petersburg's window to Europe. His reforms turned Russia into an empire, ready to claim its place on the European stage. Catherine I, 2 years, continued her husband's path, while court intrigue deepened. Her short reign was marked by conspiracies. Peter II, 3 years, from a late branch of the Romanovs, was young and pampered. He lost grip on the throne while courtiers drank and entertained him. Anna Ivanovna, 10 years, restored autocracy. Under her rule, nobles fell, secretaries rose, and the imperial court turned into a theater of plots. Russia drowned in decadence and tyranny, exposing the plight of the poor. Ivan VI, 1 year, a baby Tsar, spent his reign in captivity amidst counterplots and foreign alliances, a tragic shadow of monarchy. Elizabeth Petrovna, 20 years, Peter the Great's beloved daughter, revived the flamboyance of the imperial court grand palaces, operas, and balls while secretly preparing military resurgence and prosperity in Europe. Peter III, 6 months, promised peace and reform, cut taxes, but was swiftly overthrown in a palace coup that elevated his wife to the throne. Catherine the Great, 1762–1796, of German origin, took power after deposing her husband, Peter III. Over 34 years, she expanded the empire toward Crimea, the Black Sea, and Poland, establishing Russia as a European power. As an enlightened despot, she introduced educational reforms, drafted a legal code, and fostered culture in the spirit of French Enlightenment. Her court became a symbol of brilliance, art, and philosophy. But behind the lights lurked shadow, serfdom deepened, and rebellions like Pugachev's revealed internal tensions. Catherine remains a ruler of contrasts, bringing progress while reinforcing inequality. Paul I, 5 years, inherited his mother's throne with a touch of liberalism but soon succumbed to paranoia. His reign ended in assassination amid palace conspiracies. Alexander I, 24 years, began as a reformer, saved Europe from Napoleon, then shifted toward conservatism. His reign was a contradiction of liberty and restriction. Nicholas I, 1825–1855, ruled 30 years as a pillar of strict autocracy. He ascended after crushing the Decembrist revolt and established a regime built on control, faith, and imperial authority. He suppressed uprisings in Poland and Hungary, strengthened the secret police, imposed censorship, and promoted the ideology of orthodoxy, autocracy, nationality. Meanwhile, he pushed industrialization and railroads, modernized the army and infrastructure. But the empire began to crack under the pressure of his rule. The Crimean War exposed the fragility of a system relying only on force. Alexander II, 26 years. The Tsar Liberator abolished serfdom, reformed the judiciary, and opened paths to freedom. But his reforms couldn't shield him from terror. He was assassinated by revolutionaries. Alexander III, 13 years, turned the wheel backward, reinstating conservatism, building the Trans-Siberian Railway, fostering national pride, and isolating Russia from the West. Nicholas II, 23 years, the last Tsar. As he modernizes communications, the people grow confused, workers strike, the world is at war, and the Tsar sinks deeper into trouble. Revolution topples him from the throne, and by the end of 1917, history comes crashing down. After the tragic end of the Romanovs in 1917, the Tsars were replaced by Red Stars, and Russia embarked on a path the world had never seen before. In the fall of 1917, as the dust of the October Revolution had yet to settle, the Bolsheviks, under Lenin's leadership, seized power. The old world of Imperial Russia crumbled in chaos, while the new regime, with the slogan "Peace, Bread, Land," promised renewal. Over the next 5 years of bloody civil war, the Red Army clashed with the White Guards, foreign interventionists, and heroic Ukrainian partisans. Cities burned, villages decayed, and thousands of lives were traded for a new experimental order. The civil war, brief but decisive, brings famine and mass emigration. The young USSR is left to bleed, heal, and consolidate its power. Then, in 1922, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics was born, a federal state that, under Lenin and later Stalin, grew into an industrial giant. Lenin's early reforms gave way to Stalin's 5-year plans. Villages were collectivized, factories spewed smoke, and brutal purges shaped a society of fear. In 30 years, Stalin transformed agrarian Russia into the world's third superpower, but at the cost of millions of lives. The cultural divide approached an abyss. While a child in Leningrad memorized Leninist slogans, entire Ukrainian villages starved to death. World War II awakens Soviet patriotism. Under Stalin's iron grip, the Red Army takes Berlin, uniting triumph and tragedy. In the East, millions of soldiers and civilians die in a campaign that halts Nazism at the Volga and seals Stalin's legend. After the war, the Cold War unfolds over decades. The Korean War, the arms race, the launch of Sputnik Marxism, Leninism, as the eastern counterweight to the West. Under Khrushchev, the fear and steel of Stalin's rule are buried, while the gala stages of Moscow's theaters echo with satirical jokes about the horrors of administration. Brezhnev brings stagnation, industrial fatigue, and bureaucratic decay, while students scribble protest graffiti on Kremlin walls. In the late 1980s, Mikhail Gorbachev introduces glasnost and perestroika winds of change blowing from Warsaw to Havana. Poland breaks free, Berlin falls in 1989, and the Soviet Union, instead of a fortress, becomes a palace of cracks. In November 1991, the USSR dissolves peacefully, giving birth to the Russian Federation. Boris Yeltsin oversees chaotic transition. Inflation soars, factories shut down, and Yeltsin fires cannons at Parliament Russian-style democratic spectacle. Vladimir Putin takes the helm amid upheaval, restores stability, and reasserts control over energy. A new oligarchy rises, geopolitical tensions sharpen, and dissident voices grow faint under the shadow of televised empires. Today, nearly a century after the October Revolution, Russia balances between imperial legacies, Soviet memories, and the challenges of the modern world. During the tandem era, with Putin serving as prime minister, Medvedev leads Russia through technological reforms and modernization, but without real power. While he speaks of democracy and the internet, all key decisions are made from the shadows. Putin returns to the presidency, crushing protests in Moscow with force. After annexing Crimea in 2014 and fueling war in Donbass, he launches a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The world responds with sanctions, and Russia turns inward, relying on isolation, repression, and the myth of a besieged fortress. As battlefields burn, the state tightens control over its people and information,